What up? What up? Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm stoked for today. We're gonna do something I've been wanting to do for a long time now, and that is a YouTube reaction video. So for those of you that know me, I've watched hours and hours, hundreds, thousands hours of content on YouTube, and mostly in the categories of, building wealth, investing, business, personal finance, health, some relationship stuff, a lot of podcasts, and I have a whole library of content of my favorites. Now we're gonna do some reaction videos. My favorite YouTuber of all time is Stephan, and he was actually at the last Tony Robbins event a couple weeks ago, and I DM'd him, and it was sweet. But we're just gonna start with his most recent video that he's released. I've only seen it once, but I'm excited to react to it, and here we go.
Guys here, so this is absolutely insane. New reports now show that it could take as much as $250,000 a year just to be considered middle class in America. And if you thought that was bad, it gets worse. A recent study found that just as many people making over $200,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck as those earning under $100,000 a year. Meaning unless you're in the top 1%, it's becoming nearly impossible to get ahead. That's why we need to break down exactly how to optimize your money at every financial milestone, the strategies to supercharge your income no matter where you're starting, and the shortcuts to build wealth faster than you ever thought was imaginable. Because here's the truth, the sooner you understand how the game is played, the faster you're going to avoid some really serious mistakes. All right, now before we talk about managing hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, let's talk about the milestone that makes the biggest difference, and that would be $10,000. In terms of building wealth, it's largely said that your first $10,000 changes everything. And I'm here to say that yes, it certainly does. $10,000 is an amount that'll cover most financial emergencies that are minor. It gives you a little breathing room knowing that you have enough money to purchase groceries. And it gives you some confidence knowing that if you were to lose your job, you're not immediately going to be out on the street. So I think it goes without saying, do whatever it takes to get your first $10,000 as soon as possible, as long as it's legal.
That's a great place to start for everybody. I talk about the first thing you need to do when you start investing your money is build an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of your income. So most people are probably spending $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a month. Whatever you're spending per month, multiply that by 3 to 6. That should be your goal at first.
However, in terms of leveling up and using this $10,000 as a launching pad to eventually making hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, here's what I found that actually works. 1, learn skills that make you money. Hands down, at this stage, getting good at whatever you decide to do will be your biggest driver of wealth. And for me, that was sales. I worked as a real estate agent, and every waking moment was spent reading books, shadowing top agents, and otherwise being irreplaceable for anyone who wanted to hire me. That's why it's so important just to be good at what you do, and then you could move on to number 2, optimizing your income. Again, at this stage, your income is going to have a much greater impact in your wealth than investment returns. So use that to your advantage. Work extra hours.
I love that Graham started in sales because so did I. So I was about to graduate high school, and my dad was like, hey, the first step you need to take in life now that you're about to graduate is go from hourly or salary jobs to commission or results-based jobs. Because in an hourly or salary job, you're capped on how much you can make by how many hours you work. And there's only a certain amount of hours you can work in a week. Where in sales, you don't get paid per hour, you get paid what you put in the hour. And if you're the best and if you level up a lot, you're gonna get paid the most. So I'm with Graham there. Learn a high paying skill as fast as you can.
Overtime, learn new skills. I'll be honest, if you have any amount of free time, don't waste it. Put that time to good use, because as I'm about to show you, it'll 100x in the future. 3, stay out of debt. The fact is, this is the point where any debt you take on could potentially set you back decades. So do your best to only buy what's necessary that you can afford outright. 4, network 24/7. I know this isn't really talked about very much, but the early relationships that you make could pay off huge in the future, more than you ever would have realized. Push yourself to connect with people who are further ahead than you and have the skills that you want to develop, because sometimes that one right person can completely change the trajectory of your entire life. And 5, beware of lifestyle inflation. Unfortunately, this is something you have to be mindful of throughout every income bracket, regardless of how much you make. Otherwise, you could
I agree 100% on the network. I think proximity is power. I think you will be the average of the five people you spend most of your time with. If your five best friends all make $100,000 a year, you'll probably be the sixth. If your five best friends smoke weed every day, you'll probably be the sixth. So always try to network with people playing life in different areas of life at a higher level. And that's like the fastest way you can level up. And then stay out of debt. Interest is always working for you or against you. You want to be on the side where it's working for you with investing rather than against you. When you go buy a nice car or a big house or, rack up credit card debt, every month you're getting poorer and poorer because of those interest payments. So
be like this person making $500,000 a year living paycheck to paycheck. So do your best to start living below your means now, saving everything you can, and eventually you're gonna level up to $100,000. Honestly, as much as I love to say that your first $10,000 changes everything, the reality is that the first $100,000 gives you freedom. And here's what I mean. At this level, you have enough to protect yourself against most major financial emergencies, and your everyday stresses are less likely to be tied to living paycheck to
here's where I'll stop. So I feel like the first step to make is save an emergency fund, like I talked about, 3 to 6 months of whatever your expenses are. After that, I think the best investment you can make with extra money is in yourself. Like level up, get more skills, go to seminars, buy courses to earn more money. Because Jimmy Rex, who I had on the podcast, he says he wouldn't tell anyone to start investing until they make at least $300,000 a year. Now, I think that's pretty extreme, but I do think you should be making, at least 50 to 100,000 a year before you start investing in other things. Because the best investment is in yourself, because you'll always pay the best dividends. The more you level up, the more money you'll make, and that's the fastest way to start investing huge chunks of money.
A paycheck, but rather long-term career growth, personal fulfillment, and your ability to take calculated risks. On top of that, it's also said that once you hit $100,000, you're already 1/4 of the way to $1 million. That's because at this level, your investments start doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. For instance, it might take you 5 years for your investments to grow from $100,000 to $200,000, but it takes just 3.7 years to grow from $200,000 to $300,000, and 3 years from $300,000 to $400,000, all the way up to just 1.3 years to go from $900,000 to $1 million. Honestly, as long as you just don't f it up, $100,000 is the point where you could start making some serious cash. And if you want to be able to turn this into $1 million as fast as possible, here's what I recommend. First, invest consistently. This is the point where you should be planning.
So once you start making $100,000 a year, I think the most important investing decision is choosing the amount that you're committed to investing. Like what percent of your income are you committed to investing? Everyone says save or invest 10% of what you make, but the higher percent that you choose, the faster you'll be able to retire and the faster you'll be financially free. And let's say it's 10% right now and you make 50 grand, that's 5 grand a year. Every year you should be trying to make more money, and every year you should try to give yourself a percent raise. So let's say the next year you make 100,000 and you bump that up to 20%, where you went from saving $5,000 a year before to now 20,000. Since my first summer doing door-to-door sales after high school, I've committed to investing 80% of everything I've made, and it made me a millionaire at 22. So pick a number of what you're committed to investing.
As much money as humanly possible into your investments. Ideally, you set up a schedule where you could dollar cost average no matter what happens, and as long as you just stick with this consistently, it's only a matter of time until you hit $1 million. Second, avoid massive mistakes. I hate to say it, but most people make their biggest financial mistakes between $100,000 to $900,000. Like on paper, it seems as though there should be a big enough amount of money to be financially free, but in reality, it's really not enough to do whatever you want. People over-leverage, they take risks that they shouldn't, and they increase their monthly overhead to a point where they just get boxed in. 3, prioritize your income. Now, I know I've always advocated for saving as much money as possible by skimping out on things like Starbucks, but there's really just no way around it. At this point, you're going to see outsized returns by just going and making more money. 4th, understand how taxes work. Since every dollar you make and save at this level is so impactful, please do me a favor.
It's way easier to go earn more than try to save more. Spend your time trying to figure out more ways to earn money instead of more ways to where you can save money.
Hire a really good accountant, make yourself familiar with every tax optimization strategy available, and do everything you can to save money legally that you don't have to spend unnecessarily. And finally, fifth, practice patience. All you could really do here is to stay consistent and avoid making mistakes. And the good news is that if you have $100,000 saved and a savings rate of $24,000 a year, you're just 15 years away from hitting $1 million. And that is where a lot of the fun begins. All right, now, in terms of where the entire game changes, let's talk about what it takes to grow to $1 million. For most people, once you reach this point, your investment returns might start outpacing how much you're able to make from your job. Like, just consider that with a 20% swing upwards, that's a $200,000 gain without you lifting a finger. And from this point onwards, you could start looking at your investments as a way to provide you with income indefinitely without you ever running out. For example, when it comes to myself, I view every $100,000 in savings as really being worth $10 of spendable income a day, adjusted for inflation, because that's how much I'd be able to pull out without ever running out. That's why once you start viewing your money this way, you begin to realize just how significant every dollar is. So in terms of building and keeping $1 million to the point where you don't massively f it up, here's my advice. 1, no joke, diversify. I'm such a firm believer that if you're too concentrated in one asset class, one stock, one investment, one income source, one company, what are you waiting for? Take some chips off the table so that an AI bear market doesn't completely wipe you out. For me, this means I have 25% of my money in real estate, 35% in index funds spread throughout the entire world market, 15% in a Bitcoin ETF, and the rest in treasuries earning 4.2%. That way, should one or two markets fall, I'll be totally okay. 2, protect your downside. Again, once you've hit $1 million.
Diversification is huge. I just got back from Tony Robbins' Platt Finance event he does once a year in Canada, and he brings in billionaires. And one of the big takeaways I had there was do not make the mistake when it comes to investing to being married to one asset class, because he's like, every asset class in your lifetime at some point will drop 50 to 70%. And so he's like, look, if you have 8 to 12 uncorrelated investments, you reduce your risk by 80% and improve your upside. And so looking at my portfolio then, it was like 85% real estate and like 15%, like index funds. And I'm like, wow, I need to diversify a lot more. So I've gotten into some hard money, about to get into some more Bitcoin, more index funds, some private equity deals and stuff like that. But yeah, diversification for sure is huge.
Unless you're aiming for $10 million, do yourself a favor and protect it from anything that might come your way. This could be a job loss, health issues, divorce, lawsuits, any one of those could wipe you out. That's why you really got to do your best to mitigate these concerns with things like good health insurance, LLCs, an umbrella insurance policy, and an alternative income source, just in case. 3, speaking of protecting yourself, make sure to keep every risk factor below 20% of your net worth. For example, probably not a good idea to put 100% of your money in cryptocurrency. Not a good idea to put all of your eggs into one rental property, or rely entirely on income from one company that you don't control. You get the idea. Hire a better tax advisor. So even though people earning a W-2 paycheck, investing in index funds, and maxing out retirement accounts can only do so much in this category, beyond a certain point, if you're self-employed, it makes sense to look into more advanced or nuanced tax strategies to save a bit more money. And lastly, 5, live healthy. Look, it might sound really weird to say, but the better I've done financially, the more motivated I am to live as long as possible to be able to enjoy it. Like, I've worked really hard over these last 20 years, and I don't want to minimize the next 20 years by smoking, drinking, or just not treating myself well. In fact, I'll be honest, a few months ago, I realized I had not been to the doctor for a checkup in 5 years. And I went, I got everything checked. Thankfully, it came back fine, but I got lucky. Seriously, if you're watching this video, go and do this immediately, because here's what's crazy. Statistically, if this video gets 1 million views, that means over 100 of you watching have undiagnosed cancer that could be fixed if you go and catch it early. Seriously, just go and do this, because maybe it ends up saving your life. I don't know how many views this video is going to get, but regardless, those are the numbers. Those are real. So go and do this, please, for me.
I love that he's talking about health. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is a healthy man has 1,000 wishes, but a sick person only has one. And, most people have all these goals and dreams, but then if they get sick, all of them go away, and their number one goal is just to get healthy again. So be proactive with your health. And what I recommend is there's a website called Function Health where you can pay to get your blood tested every 6 months, and they measure like 150 different biomarkers. And in fact, from your blood, they can tell you your biological age, which is super cool. Like I'm 27 and my biological age is 16. And that's just because I eat super healthy, I work out, and I sleep good. I do a lot of different things to optimize my health. But it's cool because based on your blood, it'll tell you that biological age and then recommend specific supplements and specific foods for you to be healthy. Oh, also with Function Health, if you use the promo code TEST123, you might get it for free. But if it doesn't work, I had to pay $500.
That way, eventually, you could reach the next goal of $10 million. I've been calling these out in factors of 10 because really, from my experience, that's when it becomes a noticeable difference. Like going from $100,000 to $200,000 is about the same level up as going from $1 to $2 million in terms of what that lifestyle gets you. So once you 10x where you are today, brand new doors open up, and it's no exception with $10 million. More than likely, this is going to be a threshold that you're not going to reach by saving and foregoing Starbucks alone. Instead, you probably own your own business.
Going back to the $1 million, like when you become a millionaire and you have $1 million of investments, life gets crazy because even at a 10% return, you're earning $100,000 a year, which is like double the median, income in America. So do whatever you can to go earn enough money and then start investing as much as you can. Live as broke as you can to invest as much as you can, so that you can get that $1 million saved. Because once you're a millionaire, it's like he said, like it's going to get easier and easier to make more and more money and build that net worth.
You've saved and invested consistently while having a very high income and not blowing it all on cars and watches. Or you have an OnlyFans. This is also a really unique spot because unless you're consistently making over $1 million a year, it's no longer financially worth it to work because your investment returns could easily outpace what you make from a job. Like just consider that a 15% market swing higher is $1.5 million in gains that could potentially all be tax-free if you don't sell. That's why it's so important to keep a few things in mind. 1, focus on wealth conservation. I know this sounds kind of boring, but good estate planning is incredibly important here so your wealth doesn't get squandered by family members or by the government who takes it and spends it on who knows what. 2, you have to value time. Like here's an example. A $10 million portfolio on average is going to increase by $700,000 a year. This means it's more profitable to pay somebody $1,000 to run your errands so that you could see your family for an extra day. 3, you gotta get good insurance. That way you're gonna protect yourself because the more money you have, the bigger of a target you become. And finally 4, keep a sleep at night fund. This is just something that you keep on the sidelines, something that's relatively safe, just so that you could sleep at night knowing that no matter what happens, whether that be a prolonged market downturn, a job loss, or whatever else might come your way, you have 12 to 24 months of runway to figure it out. Even though this isn't technically optimized for the highest returns, it's going to help you out tremendously, especially once you reach $100 million. It's funny. I was recently talking to Sahil Bloom on my podcast, The Iced Coffee Hour, and he made the argument that there's actually a point to becoming too rich, where more money actually starts to have a negative impact. At a certain level, you just become a target of lawsuits, people come out of the woodwork, and you have to question if someone likes you for you or what you have to offer. Like when you could buy almost everything, what's the point when there's no one left to impress? Flying first class becomes boring. Buying another house just becomes a hassle. Any more money at a certain point doesn't add any more enjoyment, but just adds more complexity. Honestly, I'd say that at this level of wealth, very few people are probably watching, and even if they did, they probably wouldn't listen to me. So when it comes to that, all I have to say is this.
I disagree with that. I think the purpose of life is to be all that you can be. Like be the best version of yourself. Like be the healthiest version, the wealthiest version, and have the best relationships, be the happiest. And I think that the purpose of life is to be the best we can so we can give back and help others do the same. And I feel like the people that don't think money can buy happiness haven't given enough away. Like I think like some of the happiest times of my life is when I was giving the most and making the biggest impact. Whether that was a financial contribution or teaching somebody a skill that changed their life or helping them level up or giving them a habit that changed their life. I think like I think the secret to happiness is growth. And I think you should try to grow in health, try to grow in wealth, try to grow in relationships. And I think ultimately you'll be happier.
Because it really stuck with me. Money is absolutely going to change your life, but probably not in the way that you expect. Yes, it is true. Your first $10,000 is going to give you security. Your first $100,000 is going to give you freedom. Your first $1 million is going to give you options. And your first $10 million is going to give you complete financial peace of mind. But beyond that, it's not just about what you could buy anymore, but instead what you could experience. Really, the greatest luxury at every financial level is simply the ability to control your time. And the best part,
I feel like at 10 million, you'll get freedom. I feel like money to me is freedom to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. 100,000 you can't do that much with.
that you don't need $10 million to do that. And I'll tell you, I've spoken with a lot of people worth hundreds of millions, and all of them agree. Their greatest moments are not buying the 5th car or the 3rd house or taking the 10th vacation of the year. Instead, it was all from when they were first starting out, building something from nothing, and getting the achievement for accomplishing what they've set out to do. Just remember, the point isn't to get rich for the sake of being rich. It's about being able to wake up excited each morning, be able to work on what you enjoy the most, and be surrounded by people who care about you, not the money you make. Beyond a certain point, real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in time, happiness, fulfillment, and health. And really, all of those are things that you could start building today, regardless of how much money you have in your bank account. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. As a reminder, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that already. It means the world to me. Thank you again, and until next time.
I agree with Graham overall. I think he's got good principles. Thanks for watching this reaction video with me, and until next time, peace.